Welcome to the Movie Reel, the podcast about movies, TV, and entertainment. I'm your host, Heather.
And I'm your other host, Nick.
Today we're going to talk about Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
First in the series.
Yep.
Start at the beginning, and then there was one, right?
Back Little fun fact, this movie came out before I was born, and I still love it.
Yeah, came out the year I was born. I think I was like, what, 3 months
old?
Yeah, not quite actually. It was a few weeks before my 3-month birthday. But yeah, man, talk about one to kick off a series. I mean, it's still going to today. They're making a fifth Indiana Jones movie. If you guys aren't familiar with that, I don't even believe it has a title yet. But we'll talk a little bit about what they're thinking about that. And from what I understood, it's going to revisit this movie. That's what they're saying. They're going to go back to finding the Ark because this movie ends on a pretty big cliffhanger. It's like, well, where is it? Well, it's under the hands of top men.
Who?
Top men. So yeah, I'm excited to see if that's what is going to happen. That's kind of what sparked let's do an Indiana Jones series, right? Mm-hmm. Like another one's coming out. It's going to revisit the first movie potentially. Why not? Well, they're great movies. We're going to talk about them. Spoiler, yeah, we like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll chat about them here for a little bit. And just some fun facts as well, like not just going to gush on the movie, just some pretty cool things we found out about it that even we didn't know as fans. And
yeah, there's some stuff I was like, what?
Right?
Like it would be a totally different movie.
No kidding, exactly. And we are located in Indiana, so why not Indiana Jones? Yeah. And I guess we'll say something about that first. That's one of the first fun facts is Indiana comes from a dog. Indiana was George Lucas's dog's name, and he wanted to make a character, and originally it was going to be Indiana Smith. Talk about like generic.
Yeah, very generic.
I mean, Jones is still pretty common last name, but it just doesn't it just roll off the tongue so much better?
Indiana Jones is so much better than Indiana Smith.
Yeah.
And to just give you kind of a, which I'm sure there's lots of people out there, but a reach of the movie series. Growing up, I had a neighbor who lived across the street. He named his dog Indiana Jones. It was a golden retriever. We called him Indy.
Popular.
Yeah. He was a cute doggy too.
Absolutely. Another fun fact was Lucas actually worked with another filmmaker before Spielberg as well on this. So Lucas had a lot of filming, friends, evidently it says. But prior to bringing the product to Spielberg, Star Wars director talked to his friend Philip Kaufman about the idea for what was originally the Adventure of Indiana Smith, like we just mentioned.
Yeah, which this was
Seymour Kaufman or Philip
Seymour Hoffman.
Ooh, that's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I first read that, I was like, he's not a director. But now, that makes sense. Philip Kaufman, yeah.
I don't even know if Philip Seymour Hoffman.
He passed away.
Yeah, I don't know how old he would have been at this time when the movie was made. But the movie was Lucas's idea, not Spielberg's. Like some people think that Spielberg was the person who came up with the idea, but it was Lucas.
Yep, this is a George Lucas story. And Spielberg just was the guy to help make them because Lucas was a little busy with another movie called Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. Weird. Just another, you might have heard of it.
I don't know. It's not that popular anymore.
It's not that popular, no.
And then let's see the screenwriter one. You have that one pulled up there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was relatively new. He was
relatively new.
Pretty new to Hollywood.
He was extremely new.
His official credit as a screenwriter was Empire Strikes Back.
That was his first.
That was his
screenwriter. Yeah. Like, that's nuts. Empire Strikes Back, his first credit as a screenwriter. My favorite Star Wars movie, by the way. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. He did that movie and then decided, oh, you know what? You did a pretty good job. I guess so.
I guess we're going to bring you on for Indiana Jones.
Let's do this movie now. It's nowhere close to what we just did, but it just shows the chops that guy had to do some screenwriting. I thought that was pretty amazing. Okay, so some ideas for the script, obviously, that would have been used later on, and we'll talk about them as the series continues here. But Raiders of the Lost Ark is a globetrotting adventure, but in the original concept, it involved even more of a globetrotter. In the initial script, there was a trip to Shanghai, which included a minecart chase. We'll see where that comes up later.
I don't know if that's going to come up again.
I don't know. Those ideas would end up in some other movies later on. So it just goes to show there's not all bad ideas. You can use them later and still have a good time with them for sure.
This is one that it blows my mind. Like, I still cannot believe. Originally, they did not want Harrison Ford for Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted Tom Selleck.
That's just odd.
Tom Selleck. Like, no. I don't think Indiana Jones would be the series that it is today without Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I don't think it would be ongoing.
No, it probably would have been a one and done.
No, see, I think they would have done a couple, but I think it would have lost tread. Like, traction would have been gone.
I just try and picture Tom Selleck, and I can't.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it too that you got to think about is the adventure part of it. You know, that was the big part of the movies, was like how the movie was. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like this amazing acting performance from Harrison Ford either. Honestly, it really wasn't. I mean, he did good.
Yeah.
But it was still an early movie for Harrison Ford coming out of Star Wars. Harrison Ford, by the way, was like a construction worker on the sets for movies. And this was like the same year that he did it was Lucas's first film, and I'm gonna get slaughtered for this, but the car movie,
American
Graffiti. Thank you. Before they put him in that, he was a construction worker who built like sets and did things and stuff. Not an actor, and they
look at his life.
Yeah, he obviously took a huge turn, but I think Tom Selleck would have been in the movie twice. And I think it would have lost traction then, because I think as Indiana Jones continued, I think they progressively got better. Mm-hmm. And you could see, obviously, Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford would not still be doing these movies if he didn't enjoy doing the character.
Right.
And it's always a big difference when you can tell someone enjoys doing the character in their performance.
Yes. The movies always tend to be better.
So I agree with you, but I still think it would have warranted one more movie, because it would have been such a good, fun action flick that would have been like, give me another one. That was a super fun adventure. Never seen something like that before. And then they'd been like, okay,
he's not.
You don't know. And then they would have had to go James Bond and pick somebody else or something. Who knows? But yeah, that's a weird one. So the original plan for Salah was a little bit different, and he's kind of the buddy of Harrison Ford in this, helps him get through Egypt. It says he's a vital compatriot to Indiana Jones when he arrived in Egypt for the role. He says, but the production was originally wanting Danny DeVito. That would have been weird, because I can't. Now you say Tom Selleck, like I could see Tom Selleck. They would have to change stuff up on him, but I could see Tom Selleck as a character doing this. Mm-hmm. However, I could not see Danny DeVito playing an Egyptian. Like, because that's what this is. Yeah. Like, I mean, essentially they had a white actor with an Egyptian accent. That's what they did. They just make-upped him up and said, here, do it. And, which this is the same actor in this movie that plays Gimli.
Yes.
In the Lord of the Rings, which we love Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But the Danny DeVito thing, it doesn't strike me at all. Like,
no.
He's super little, and short. How would he fight? And
yeah, and like, no, I just think of the Penguin.
Yeah, well, and it's the reason it's so hard. Obviously, the Penguin, yeah, but the reason it's so hard for me is already seeing Raiders and then going, this guy is as big as Harrison Ford.
6'1".
He's 6'1", mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, he plays Gimli later, who's this little guy,
dwarf, yeah.
But Danny DeVito is like 5 foot under. I mean, he's tiny. What would he have done? How much help could he have been?
Yeah, how could he have been any help? Like, you think of the scene where Salah's lowering Indy into the hole. How is Danny DeVito realistically going to do that?
Like, yeah, exactly. How's he going to hold him up? Or is he just going to be like, he could have been like the leader of like a bunch of henchmen, and the henchmen could have helped Indy maybe. But it just wouldn't have been the same.
No, it wouldn't have been
compatriot.
personal connection that they
Right.
had. It wouldn't have been as good.
Okay, and the next one you got to take here.
A notable actor made his debut in Raiders.
Very notable.
None other than Alfred Molina. This was his big screen debut, and he lasted all of about 10 minutes.
Yeah, he didn't last very long, but he made an impact somewhere because if you guys are familiar with him, he is Doc Ock in the Spider-Man universe. So yeah, great actor. He's done many roles since then, but the one that stands out the most for me is definitely Doc Ock. I think that's the one that everybody lives and breathes by when they think of Alfred Molina. Is he is Dr. Octopus. One of those performances that is really hard to see anybody else take it. I just can't do it.
There are just some roles that actors take, and you're like, I cannot imagine anyone else doing it. And that's definitely one.
Yeah. Tony Stark as Iron Man.
Yes.
But, that kind of stuff. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark as Iron Man. But yes, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Yes. Simple.
Tom Hiddleston as Loki.
Those just no. Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing an Iron Man shirt today. If you guys are watching,
I'm wearing Loki.
We have Marvel and movie stuff behind us.
We're on it.
Come on, that's what we are. So this one's just kind of silly that they even put this in a fun fact. But I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was hilarious. But it's talking about a famed composer working on the film. I mean, come on, John Williams has done so many things, but at this point, John Williams has been nominated for 52 Oscars. That's insane. That is insane. That's probably more than one for every year that he's been in the business.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it says that's not a typo, and the only Walt Disney has more nominations. He's won only 5 of them, though, for Academy Awards. But that's neither here nor there. One of his many films is Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he composed, among other songs, the iconic Indiana Jones theme. The song is officially called The Raiders March, and now it's stuck in your head. That's a great music, man. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, man. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, there's nothing about it that's not. It sticks in your head. It's along with Star Wars. John Williams does music that you catch a little bit of it in everything he does, but it's always different enough where it's unmistakable.
Know what it is. Yep.
Yeah. What do you got next?
I thought this was cool. So in 1981, the PG-13 rating had not been implemented yet. It was strictly G, PG, and R. So those were your choices. Temple of Doom is one of the first movies that got a PG-13 rating. But it was going to be R until they took out, there was a really violent death scene that they had to remove. And then that's how they got the PG-13.
But to clarify, because you skipped the part, this movie was going to be R.
Yes. Okay.
Temple of Doom was the first ever PG-13 movie. So we'll talk about that as the series goes. But yes, this movie, Raiders, almost got an R rating because of the death scene that's in it. That they did take one, they took it out. They don't talk about exactly what it was though. But we're pretty sure
Belloc's violent end that they on screen. They took it off screen to avoid the R rating.
But they didn't say what it was. They didn't describe the violent
scene,
end. Yeah. But I guess it was bad enough, that we have a melting face and all those kinds of things. It was very cool practical effects though for back then. I really thought it was really
think about it. We watched this movie again the other day. We watched it with the kids. Like, I just can't imagine in my brain any way that Indiana Jones would ever be considered an R-rated movie.
No, they're just a fun action romp.
So now it makes me want to go back and watch like some of these R-rated like late 70s, early 80s movies and be like, by today's standards, what would this have actually
would they be R?
Yeah. Because probably not.
Yeah. We could do an episode on that. We could pick like 10 movies and be like, okay, what would they be today?
What would they be today? That's a good idea. We need to write that one down. We should do that sometime.
But if anything, like I feel like Temple of Doom had so many more things, and we'll talk about those in a later episode, but that would have warranted an R instead of this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that death scene that they don't tell us or describe to us
you're like,
had to have been terrible.
What was it? Like, I wonder if we could find it somewhere.
Yeah, was
like,
he like
lost
was
footage.
he being like torn apart by a bunch of like the souls that come from the ark?
Yeah,
Or I have no idea. It's just interesting to me. So another one here says the monkey in the movie is not an actual Nazi. So just so you
Just so
guys
you know,
know,
the
that's
monkey's
one
not
fun,
really a Nazi.
that's one fun fact. In fact, getting it to salute was quite tricky. They had a pretty hard time with this. So over 50 takes to get it right for the monkey to perform the
They had to
Nazi
use a
salute.
grape.
Yeah, they had to use a grape. They have to bribe animals.
Yeah,
We know how
you
that goes.
We have a dog.
We have a dog. Yeah, you got to bribe them. They get it done eventually. So I thought that was kind of cute to think about. Like when you watch it now, just remember he's just trying to get the grape. That's all he wants. He's not a Nazi.
No, not at all. So one of my favorite scenes actually in the movie is where they're in the town in the shop area, you know, when Marion first gets kidnapped and Indy's trying to rescue her, and you know, he's fighting all of these guys, and then the big guy comes out in the black outfit. And
yes,
Indy legit, no qualms, just bam, shoots him right in the head.
I'm so over it.
He's like, I'm over it. And I just thought that's so cool because she's like, oh man, this is going to be such a long fight. And then he just caps it. And you're like, okay, Indy, he's not putting up with that.
Hilarious too.
It is hilarious. But there was actually a reason for that. It was supposed to be like a longer fight, but Harrison Ford was sick.
Right.
Like they were in the desert, the heat, like he was not feeling good. Basically, everyone on the shoot got sick.
Yes.
So to stay on track, they just reworked it, so he just shot him and it was over.
It's supposed to be a big sword fight, and they're like, how about this? And he's like, I could get out there and do that and go back to bed, you know, whatever the conversation was. But yeah, it was epic. Like I remember that as a kid, just thinking it was hilarious, but at the same time just such a badass move. It's just like, you know, that's what a real guy would do.
Yeah,
like a real guy would be like, no, I got a gun, you got a sword, you're done.
I'm just gonna shoot you.
It's like, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. It's a perfect like parody for that. I loved it. So big thing about the movie as well is how popular it was. So it debuted June 12th, 1981. And it definitely was a blockbuster because the movie hit over the summer and beyond. It stayed in the top 10 for 41 weeks.
That's a long
That's
time. That's almost
time.
A year.
And think about all the movies coming out in the 80s. You know, in 81. There's a bunch of movies
81,
coming out.
82.
So it
was this ran, it would have been,
well, Jaws is the other big one it mentions.
It would have ran from June of 81. It would have been number one and clear up until end of March, beginning of April of 82.
It didn't leave theaters until March of 1982. It was almost a year.
Unheard of nowadays.
Yeah, they don't leave a movie in theaters for more than just a few months now.
It almost seems like it's less than that anymore. Like it's like the movie comes out and a month later you're like, oh, it's on streaming.
Right. Like, and that's the case. Disney Plus, it's 30 days.
Yeah, we definitely
45.
don't go to the theater as much as we used to, which is okay. I mean,
we have a pretty nice setup.
We have a nice setup. I would much rather stay home and watch it in the comfort of my couch than deal with people, but that's just me.
Yep, right. More or less, you know. It takes a special movie to pull people into theaters like us anyway.
What was the last movie we
Thor.
saw? Thor, yes.
Yeah,
Thor.
We did see Thor.
Most Marvel movies we will go see in theaters.
Right. But yes, this obviously, not surprisingly, the number one movie of 1981. When you were in the top 10 for 41 out of 52 weeks, you're probably going to be number one. Well deserved, though. Well deserved. Excellent movie.
Yes, and it was a box office smash, and it was it won quite a few Oscars. It won. It was nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. Out of 9 total nominations. It didn't win, but Chariots of Fire won Best Picture. And it did take home 5 Academy Awards. Best Art Direction, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Visual Effects.
Yeah.
And
5 out of 9.
If you think of the time frame, that's probably, this was the first probably like really visual, like, how do I want to say it? Like improvement, because as movies have progressed, visual effects have gotten better.
Visual effects. Okay, you said visual improvement, so I'm trying to like see what you mean.
No,
like,
visual effects. Like,
yeah,
this is starting that, time frame where like computer generated effects are coming into play a little bit.
I mean, but this didn't use a bunch of those because of being a Spielberg movie. I mean, he was still about 15 years away from doing anything with computers, which would have been Jurassic Park. That was like a focused computer generated movie. This one really only had the ending that was anything CG. Mm-hmm. All the rest of it was all practical, which is one of the huge reasons I love Indiana Jones movies, is because so much of it is practical. Until we get to the newest one, which is, we'll talk about that later. But it's like, I think it was more of what they're saying here. It was editing, sound editing, and then they say visual effects. Because yes, at the end they say visual effects. Well, let's just clarify. That's not computer generated or practical. That's both. That's what they're talking about. Practical effects beyond like amazing in these movies. So good.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I was just trying to say that this was probably the time frame where they started to like first really combine computer effects with practical effects to make visual effects.
Yeah, I mean, you had like Close Encounters and stuff like that coming out a little bit before this, like really close still, but yeah, still heavy on the practical effects part of it. But this would have been one that like, I think like, I guess that what would have stuck in people's minds, because it was at the end when, when the Ark is opened and all the computer effects happen, then that stands to like stick to people, the ending of a movie. So I think that sort of thing would have been a big deal with it. But I think it's hilarious to think about sound editing in this movie, because when you watch this movie now and how it won Academy Awards for it, hey, no, I'm not throwing any shade at the movie at all. Love it. But, the punches are just so video game like. They're just like, I mean, they literally sound like someone's making it in, with their mouth. It's hilarious. But at the same time, it's visceral. So like it fits. When they were just filming and it was just no effects added, it was just terrible. Like, no noise. They're just swinging and nothing's happening. The punches in Indiana Jones always sound their way. Yeah, they
just have a sound to them.
Yeah. I think that's great that it won for sound anything, though, honestly. But it is kind of a bummer that I don't see a win here for John Williams introducing movie music that has just lasted for how long.
Yeah,
it's kind of a bummer.
That is kind of crazy.
So Raiders was one of the first home video success stories. In the early 80s, VCRs were only beginning to become popular. A VCR, for any of our younger audience, which I know you guys don't exist, we're like a 35 to 44. Video cassette recorder. That's what they were, guys. Unless
they're about yay long.
Yeah, they kind of look like a cassette.
If you don't know what a cassette is, ask your mom and dad.
When things used to be real that we put into things, and now we don't have to do that.
Digitally stream it.
So Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of the first new movies to come out in the wake of the rise of VHS. So in 1983, Paramount produced and then recorded 500,000 VHS copies of the film for retail sale.
It was a record, a then record.
Oh, sorry, then
500,000, so 500,000 copies.
Yep.
In 1983,
right?
That they put out.
Right, and it says they cost a whopping $39.95, which was actually a lot lower than the VHS movies at the time. Which is true, they were like hundreds of dollars. The price was not a deterrent apparently, and they had sold over 1 million copies by 1985, which was a record. Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, now like you think of 1 million of something and they're like, a million's no big deal. But for 500,000 to be sold at retail and like right then and there, and 1983, which was 2 years after the movie came out, for it to catch fire again, I thought that was pretty cool that it's like such a span.
Well, and I mean, as a kid, I remember like Disney movies that would come out. You'd go watch them in the theater, and it'd be like another year before they'd even come out on VHS. And you're like, okay, now I get to rewatch it again. Like
you forget it.
You forget it, and it's like watching it again for the first time, which was great. Which I kind of miss that now. Like,
kind of, yeah,
yeah.
It's kind of a bummer.
Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark also inspired a Disney World show. It debuted in 1989, and it was a live show that featured replications of stunts from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can still find this show all these years later.
Yep, still going on. They still play around with it. I've yet to see that though when I've been there, but I don't think we go to that part.
No,
that's Epcot.
I think so. We've only ever been to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, we're stuck. We have kids. Eventually, we'll get old enough and we'll be able to split up. So speaking of kids, it inspired a lot of kids. This movie inspired a lot of kids to become archaeologists. The film certainly makes being an archaeologist seem fun and exciting. That's for sure. You can travel the globe, you can punch Nazis, and you get tangible proof of the existence of Judeo-Christian gods. But college girls write love notes on their eyelids for you as well. So if you've seen the movie, you know how that goes. But as such and it's not surprised that many people have been said that Raiders of the Lost Ark got them interested in studying archaeology, which makes total sense. I mean,
yeah.
You see movies and you kind of want to do what's in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this would probably been one of the first few things that was an actual real job that people could go out and study for and become to just entice them. Like, you can't be like, oh, I want to be like James Bond. Like, yeah, well, I mean, spies exist and whatnot, but
I really prefer not to get shot at all the time.
I want to be a guy on a boat and go out and catch, sharks. Right. Sure. Like it wasn't like a sought after thing, but they did make this as being an archaeologist, like the coolest thing.
Archaeology, which granted, I don't feel like you hear about it as much anymore.
No, not really.
Like growing up, like that was the thing. Like that was cool. Like discovering it. Now you're just kind of like, I don't really feel it anymore.
There's so much more news all over everything now. It kind of hides it. I mean, occasionally I'll catch something about so many 100 years old skull of one of the first primates and things like this. But yeah, it's pretty much covered up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Raiders of the Lost Ark inspired one of the most famous fan films of all time. So in 1982, some 12-year-olds started recreating the movie shot for shot. They screened it once in Mississippi and then went off to college. And then a bootleg copy started making rounds in the early 2000s, and people really got into it again, which I'll be honest, I've never heard of this.
Nope, never seen it.
The three kids who are now adults even got to meet Spielberg, who said he was a fan of their movie. Then, like Lucas himself, the guys decided to tinker with the film. Mm-hmm. We know how that goes sometimes. Yeah. In 2014, they put together a Kickstarter to fund shooting the one scene they had not recreated as teenagers, blowing up the flying plane wing.
Yeah, the flying wing airplane. Mm-hmm. Yeah, never seen it. Not sure where you could even find it, to be honest with you. They don't even tell us that here.
Nope. It's just called Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So this one here, it's our last one we'll chat about, and then we'll kind of chat about the movie and get out of here. But this one's BS.
I agree.
So some people argue that Indiana is not a particularly see, I can't even agree with it because I don't even want to say it. But he is a particularly ineffective protagonist. The internet is full of off the beaten path pop culture opinions, many of them contrarian hot takes, which, yeah, you'll find those on our show too, obviously. But however, there's one that does make you think, is Indiana Jones all that effective in Raiders of the Lost Ark? Think about it. He doesn't stop the Nazis from finding the Ark of the Covenant. He isn't able to help himself or Marion. What happens is the Nazis open the Ark, which they would have done regardless, and then that it kills all of them. Had Indy not shown up to the Nazis, would have suffered the same fate, right? of course, it doesn't make the movie any less fun to watch.
So I have to admit, I actually thought this when we watched the movie the other day. I'm like, why is he chasing them so hard when if they open it, they're gonna die?
Mm-hmm.
Like he could just let them open it and die, and then.
But he didn't know what was going to happen.
That's true. That's true.
He was still trying to do the right thing. Like the whole time, he was just trying to be the hero and do the right thing.
Yeah.
And he didn't know what was going to happen. But if he hadn't have showed up, Marion would have died. That's what I think. That's why I'm like, it makes total sense.
And, yeah, because he told her to keep her eyes closed and not look at them.
Right. But she was also captured in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And what would they have done with her? Like they probably would have killed
sacrificed her.
Yeah. They would have done something to her.
Yeah.
Forced her into slavery or something like that. The saving grace to and we'll talk about it as the series go, but the saving grace to this movie for the series is Indy and Marion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like without those two, you don't continue the series the way it went.
Yeah.
And in this movie alone, she was dead. Like if Indy hadn't showed up, she wouldn't have got roped in. You could argue that point. But at the same time, she still had the thing that the Nazis needed.
Yeah, they still wanted that. They would have found her regardless.
Yeah. So this, for me as a protagonist, thinking about the movie, thinking about Indy as the protagonist and me just thinking overall the movie, yeah, if the two of them weren't together, one of them was going to die.
Yeah.
So, that's my point of it. It's like, yes, you could say what happens would have always happened. And I'm not going to argue that point because that is true. That states it right here. I think that is a fact. But the other missing point is Marion would have been dead.
She would have been gone.
Good point. Not cool. I thought she was a great love interest. And then, she plays parts later on as well, which is pretty cool. So we'll go through a couple quick favorites, least favorites, overall thoughts, and head out. What is the least favorite thing for you in the movie?
Least favorite for me. I mean, I know he's supposed to be because he's the bad guy, but the bad guy was really a jerk. Like
the guy in black?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about?
No, like the overall big bad.
Okay. Gotcha,
you know what I mean? Like he was rather vicious at some points, which he was a Nazi, so it shouldn't really surprise me, I guess. And the fact that the monkey died.
Mm-hmm.
The poor monkey.
Poor guy.
He just wanted to eat the grape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He wasn't trying to be a Nazi.
No.
We already know this. It's a fact.
Although he was he gave up where Marion was.
Yeah, I know he's a little jerk at the beginning.
He was a little jerk.
I think my least favorite part was, and not the whole scene, but I just think it was too long of a scene, was the scene where Indy was being drugged underneath that
the truck. Yeah.
And he would fall off and then go underneath and get back in.
It did get kind of repetitive.
That scene was just too long. I think it needed to be cut down. And I think the fighting scene that happened between the guy and him in the truck could have been gone completely.
Mm-hmm.
That whole chasing the Rolls Royce or whatever they were driving, that little scene there was okay, a little too much. I liked the stunt work and everything that happened, and it was cool, but the grill's breaking and they did that 3 times, and just doing a little bit more editing out of those little pieces to show a little bit faster process of what's happening there, because it obviously didn't take that long.
No,
but they made it was much longer in the movie than it needed to be. What do you got as a favorite?
Obviously I like the street fighting scene where he just blatantly shoots the guy dead. And you're like, okay, that's done. It's over.
Yeah.
And then when they use the airplane,
the propellers for the other big guy.
Yeah, and then they blow it up.
Yeah.
Also, I think the scene with the snakes is hilarious.
Yeah, with the down underground.
Which those are actually real snakes that a trainer did. And the trainer actually shaved his legs to fill in for
Marion?
Yes. In some of the scenes. And then the people had to walk around, which this was one of the facts that I read, with special guards on their legs. None of the snakes were poisonous or venomous, but they would bite.
No thanks.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Harrison Ford actually is really scared of snakes.
I
I don't know if it's him or if it was maybe it was Lucas.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I kind of agree with him. Like I'm not like scared of snakes. Like if somebody's holding a snake and like pet it, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't want one like crawling on me and stuff. Like no thanks.
I don't want to be in a room full of
and I don't want a king cobra staring me in the face that can kill me in a half second. No, don't thanks. No thanks. I'm good. So I'm with you, Harrison. If you're scared, dude, man, I'm with you. We'll go. We'll run away together, buddy. I am out of here.
What about you?
I think favorite scene for me. There's so many in this movie, though. Overall, it's really, really freaking good. It's tough. I really like the beginning a lot because it establishes him right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably have to go with that. Like that scene, and it's been memed and used in Family Guy and so many things, but
Chicken Little.
That whole scene of Chicken Little, but getting to the amulet or the idol, and then everything hits the fan and just getting out like that 15-minute intro.
Off.
Yeah, like taking a little bit of the sand out and putting the bag down. That whole thing, getting to it and then coming back, it was a tense moment in the beginning. You don't know what's going to happen. I remember watching it as a kid, like, how's he swinging across this chasm off of a branch with a whip? And how's the whip not detaching itself? And like all these little things you think about that stress you out when you're watching it for the first time.
Yeah, and then how does he unwrap the whip?
Like, and then how does he get the whip? And then how does he go back the other way without it undetaching? All these little things. But then, all the traps, which I saw this movie after I saw Goonies being a kid. So they really reminded me of Goonies. And then, there's the dead bodies and all the other things. And you're just like, I just thought the beginning of it, like just such a great intro to a character, like probably one of the best, because they just give you all of it all at once. And then you see him as a teacher in the next scene. You're like, oh, dang. Like,
and
you learn that he hates snakes, and that he's like chasing, crazy things for, archaeology, and, and he's a badass. And it was just, the beginning was really, really good. And it just kept, it continued to stay good.
Yeah.
Which was really great for me.
Can we just make a side note that Marion is one hell of a drinker?
Marion can drink. Yeah.
She will drink you under the table.
Yeah. Steer clear of the small ones. They know how to, I don't know, process alcohol better, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, she can drink. That was a fun scene too.
That was fun too.
Overall, what are your thoughts? What was your takeaway on the movie?
Go watch it. It's a good movie.
It's
very much a popcorn movie.
Yes.
I love those.
Yeah, staying, shut the brain off, staying in, grab some popcorn and chill out with the family or, loved ones, watch some movies. Watch it alone, who cares? The movie's amazing. And then it just starts off a series that's just so good and continues down the road. It has some screw ups here and there, but nothing's perfect.
No. Anything about the time frame, you're going to have that.
Yeah, exactly. Even when you get into the 2015 years of it. But yeah, really good.
It's a recommend from me.
Oh, it's definitely recommend. I think it's, like I already said, I think it's one of the best intros to a new character that has ever happened. Honestly, I don't think it's really, really, really hard, without jumping into Marvel, to think of a movie that was just so practical, with not necessarily a no-name actor, but with, a lesser known actor that was put into another enormous role. You had Harrison Ford playing, Han Solo and Indiana Jones,
I could argue Brendan Fraser in The Mummy.
Yeah, but see, it didn't like kick off this amazing thing for him.
2 of them.
No, he was in 3 Mummy. He was in 3 Mummy movies, but it didn't keep Brendan Fraser on top, and like he did not keep tracking. Not to say that Indiana Jones was the only reason that Harrison Ford did. Obviously, he's done both Han Solo and Harrison. So
here's a quick question we can discuss real quick before we're done. But if Star Wars had not been as big, do you think Indiana Jones would have kept going?
Yes.
Okay, now let's reverse it. If Indiana Jones had not been as big, do you think Harrison Ford would have continued in Star Wars?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like he had it good either way,
Yeah, he
man.
did.
Like he
Even
was
if
good.
one didn't pan out, the other one
Yep.
was going to be
Yep.
okay.
And that's just like a cozy, blanket, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Like that's just nice to have. Like, man, I got something to fall back on just in case. And maybe it made it better for both of them because of that. Like,
I kind of feel yes, because people saw him as Han Solo and like, oh, he's in Indiana Jones.
mhm.
And they saw Indiana Jones and they're like, oh wow, this is really cool. So then I kind of feel like it probably helped
Both
that
of them.
both movies
Yeah.
were good and people were like, hey, we like Harrison Ford. Let's go see this new Star Wars movie,
Well, and I think honestly, we could go down that road for a minute, but I think the fact that Indiana Jones is so far opposite of Star Wars,
yeah, like a palate cleanser almost.
that like they had fans for both,
Mhm.
and those fans crossed
Yes.
over. So then they ended up they basically like infused each other with
Mhm.
more audience
Yeah.
because of Harrison. Because it's like, oh, I saw him in Indiana Jones. They're like, oh yeah, have you seen him in Star Wars? They're like, wait a minute,
He's in Star
what are
Wars?
you talking about? What's Star Wars? Or because those people would be like that. Like,
Mhm.
oh no, I really dig those fun adventure movies and stuff. Star Wars, and then like they just don't even think about it. Like, oh, it's a space opera or whatever they wanted to call it
Mhm.
back then. And then that person's immediately turned off.
Right.
But then they go, oh, he's in that? And then they watch it like, these are really good.
Yeah.
And then the opposite, Star Wars
Yeah.
people watch it and then they're like, have you seen Indiana Jones? Like, no, what's that? Holy cow, that's really good. And just kind of think maybe they fed off of each other and
Yeah.
just build each other up. And maybe that's another reason they continued to keep going, because they did keep going together.
I mean, and if you think about it, the common denominator, granted you have George Lucas, but Harrison Ford.
Right. So that's that's the other
he's
thing
like
with
the driving force, it feels like.
Yeah. And speaking back to the Tom Selleck part of it, that would be another reason, thinking about it that way, that it probably wouldn't have continued.
Right.
People would have been just like,
fizzled out.
I'm kind of done with it now. But they kept probably just filling each other up with steam over and over and over.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
Look at it. Watch it.
Yeah. Raiders of the Lost Ark, really good.
Yes.
Great start off for an amazing series that is still going, even at a 70-year-old Harrison Ford, still kicking ass out there.
Still looks good for 70.
Yeah, he does. That dude takes care of himself, so that's pretty awesome. So we're looking forward to talking some more of these. This is our first one in the series. There'll be 3 more to follow, so continue watching. Weekly, we're planning to do these. That way we can keep them on track for you guys. But yeah, great movie. Go check it out. That is it for this episode. Go grab some popcorn, grab a remote, watch a movie.
Yeah, go find something cool to watch. This show is a part of the Loud Thumbs Network. Find everything at loudthumbs.com.